Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is the CEO of HD Muscle. Today's guest is Dorian Hamilton. Dorian, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me on here. I know we've been trying to line this up for quite some time, so it's great to finally get on.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like I said before I hit record, I know you've got a lot of things going on, which is an understatement, I know, but I do appreciate you coming on, man. We're going to have a great chat. So I want to kind of just ask you a question I like to ask all my guests just to kind of kickstart the conversation, Dorian. Who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Ooh, that's a big question. Few bodybuilders of all time. Well, I've been in bodybuilding since I was like, oh my gosh, probably 10 years old. So from a very young age, I followed it because my older brother Noah was already buying the magazine when he was 14. He's 4 years older than me. So, but I would have to say, like in the early stages, obviously, would have been like Arnold Schwarzenegger, seeing him on the big screen as a youngster. He was a star. But then by the time my brother was buying the magazines, Dorian Yates was a reigning Mr. Olympia. He had the same name as me. So that sort of resonated with me. And I thought it was really cool because I didn't know any other Dorians at that time. And like the only other Dorian was the guy in the background behind you there was Mr. Olympia. And then as I got a little older and a little more into bodybuilding, someone that I really resonated with and really looked to for a lot of inspiration when it came to like business, just the way he conducted himself, the way he was as a bodybuilder, a businessman, was Jay Cutler. So, and then later on, I got the opportunity to meet Jay, become friends with Jay, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I would say like those three guys, probably had the most influence on me. Obviously, there's other bodybuilders that are incredible that I loved, growing up in the 90s, and, Flex Wheeler and Chris Cormier and Kevin DeVroney. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to ask you, because you're a Canadian guy, were there any Canadians kind of when you were, younger, maybe some local guys or nationally that kind of stick out in your mind in terms of maybe not an all-time favorite, but somebody that maybe had some sort of influence on you more local?
Yeah, so like the bodybuilding community here in Canada, I mean, it's come a long way now with Pure Muscle and Fitness. Everyone is sort of at our gym. We brought like all the bodybuilders. People have moved here from all over the country to train at Pure Muscle and Fitness. Like we have 9 Olympians training out of the gym right now. So it's pretty incredible. But back then, bodybuilding in Canada, it was kind of like the pro bodybuilders were kind of had this like crazy mystical, like, oh, that's so-and-so. You'd only see them like once a year, or you know what I mean? It was a little different. So back then, I would say like the first sort of people were probably Fuad and Ben Pekulski. Those two guys, they had like a little friendly rivalry. I ended up becoming like really good friends with Fuad when I had my nutrition store, Pure Nutrition. And his wife actually worked with us and helped us a lot. And at that time they were dating. So me and Fuad actually became really good friends when I was like, oh my gosh, I had to have been like 22 years old. And we remained good friends for a good, like, 8+ years. So he had a lot of influence on me with training and just me seeing, what it took to be a pro bodybuilder. And even having my nutrition store, I got to meet Ben. Ben used to shop at our store, got the opportunity to train with him. So I'd say those two guys, had a lot of influence on me, and still to this day, even with Ben, right? He trains at my gym now. I get workouts in with him time to time, still learning from him from like, the training aspect side of things, biomechanics. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is super cool. Now, you mentioned, Dorian, kind of like the bodybuilding community as a whole in Canada, kind of back in the day. And I kind of think that's how it was, let's say 15, 20 years ago during the magazine era, not just in Canada, but in a lot of places. It's like we only got to see the guys, through the magazine. So they were kind of like mystical, right? Or it was just there was this aura around IFBB pros. But obviously with your gym now, you just mentioned there's all kinds of Olympians and IFBB pros training there. But do you feel like bodybuilding, like open men's bodybuilding, has really grown over the last several years in Canada? And if so, speak to that for a minute, please.
Yeah, I honestly think bodybuilding, I mean, obviously when we say bodybuilding, there's so many different divisions now, but I feel like open bodybuilding is still thriving. I know a lot of people will say it's dying and classic physique and these other ones are taking over, but at the end of the day, I think bodybuilding is always going to be, the grand slam in the industry. And yeah, I think it's thriving here in Canada. What's really inspired me, like with Pure Muscle and Fitness, was like when I was younger, I had the opportunity to go down to Gold's Gym Venice. And when I went there, just feeling that energy and that like vibe when you walked in and you'd see like Dexter Jackson training and Charles Glass is there. And you just see all these familiar faces and like the who's who in bodybuilding. And I thought that was so incredible. So when we did do Pure Muscle and Fitness, I was sort of a vision. We wanted to make something so amazing that it actually attracted like everyone within Canada to want to move here, to want to train at this gym and create that environment to encourage everybody just to be the best they can be. So the bodybuilding scene here is incredible. Back when I was coming up in Burlington, this area, Toronto, there was very, very few pro bodybuilders. In Burlington, where Pure Muscle is, there was no pro bodybuilders, like none, like anywhere. So now it's incredible to see what we've built here. And it's just bringing people from all over. Like back when I was young, I'd drive out to Brampton, see Frank McGrath, who I became friends with. But I'd see him at one of the gyms, then maybe you go to Toronto and you go to System downtown. Maybe Mike Van Wyck was training there. And now he's training at our gym too. So, Henderson Thorne used to train at Olympia Muscle and Fitness, Mississauga back in the day. He trains at our gym. So all these guys now have come under one roof, so it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Super cool, man. Okay. For the sake of time, I kind of just want to lightly touch on your childhood. It's something with this podcast. I like to kind of get the backstory of the guests, hence the name behind the muscle, right? But so just talk a little bit, because I've had your brother Noah on here and we got a little bit of his upbringing, which is going to be probably a little bit similar, obviously.
How long ago did you do it with Noah?
It's probably been, I'd say, probably earlier this year.
Oh, no way. I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that. So.
And Big Mike's been on here. Quentin's been on here.
Yeah, I saw Quentin's.
Yeah, Antoine's
That's awesome.
on here. So I've gotten a lot of the guys. You're kind of the last one I've been going after. So
okay.
Yeah, so I had a great talk with Noah, and he kind of talked about, obviously his perspective of the childhood, but just touch on lightly, like, did you play some sports? Were you really active as a young person? Talk about maybe like your parents and their influence. Cause I think from my understanding through social media, they're still a pretty big part of like Pure Muscle, and they're a part of kind of like what you guys have going on with all your brands and companies. So talk about your parents, talk about any sports you played, and then we'll dive fully into bodybuilding talk.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Growing up, we have a really like sort of tight-knit family. It's me and my brother Noah, my sister Mariah, and my direct family. And we're actually all now business partners with HD Muscle. Mariah runs all the creatives, all the Instagram, all the artwork, photo shoots. She's incredible. So growing up, I was a middle child. My brother was 4 years older than me. So I was like really close with both my brother and my sister, where Noah and Mariah, big gap, 9-year gap. So they weren't so close growing up. But for me, I think like having an older brother, sort of like gave me a lot more confidence, I think, to do the things that I wanted to do, because I looked up to him so much. And I saw like when he started training or whatever it was, he played hockey. He was a sick hockey player. So I was like, oh, that's my older brother. I'm following in his footsteps. I have the same genetics, this, that. I'm going to be a sick hockey player. You know what I mean? So it's like, then when he started training, he got really big, really quick results. He was the big muscular guy in high school. So I was like, it gave me the confidence to know I can do it because I've already seen him do it. And now I'm getting more information from him. He's already made some mistakes. He's relaying them to me, so I should be better. So yeah, it was like really cool having an older brother. Just the way that I viewed my older brother at that time was like, I think had a huge advantage for me, because it just gave me confidence, right? Like I thought he was just like the man, right? When he was in high school, I thought he was so cool. I just thought the world of him. So it was like, it just gave me confidence knowing that whatever I wanted to do, I could do it. And I didn't doubt myself, right? Where when you flip And in his position, being an older brother, you don't really have someone to like look up to or to give you that confidence. So I think it was a major advantage for me with anything that I got into, business wise, sports wise, anything I did, having an older brother. And my parents were extremely encouraging. Sorry, give me one sec. My dog is going crazy. One sec. Hey, Charlie, get over here now. Come on. Come on. My parents were, Charlie just sits at the door and he just like likes to patrol the street. He sees someone and barks all day. But my parents were really encouraging. My dad, like, no matter what we did, was always like our number one supporter. You know, in the early years, we played hockey, you know, so he really wanted us to go pro, play professional hockey. It wasn't until I was like 17, I broke the news to him, which was really hard. I was like, Dad, listen, like, I'm at this point now, and I think a lot of kids are probably getting this position. I was like, I like hockey. I don't love it. I'm doing this for you, because I didn't want to, like, got to a point where it was like, I didn't want to let him down. I was doing it for him more than myself. So that was definitely hard, like, you know, breaking the news to my dad. But you know what? He actually took it really good. And he was in full support of me bodybuilding. And then I did my first bodybuilding show when I was, you know, 17 years old. But even growing up, like me and my brother, as far as business wise, you know, I feel like we had a major advantage even when it comes to business, because like there's two of us, right? Two minds, bringing energy, bringing thoughts, bringing things together. You know, when we were kids, we were delivering newspapers together. We were going out cutting grass together, making cash. We were shoveling driveways. You know what I mean? We opened our first nutrition store when I was right out of high school, 19 years old. We opened Pure Nutrition. So like we had each other to sort of like rely on, and you know, we were just that much stronger. Yeah. I think everyone's stronger together.
Now,
so I don't know if I missed anything there.
Oh no, that's perfect, man. That's perfect. I want to ask you though a little bit more about your parents, because again, they're still a very integral part, it sounds like, with everything that you and your siblings have going on. What did your parents kind of instill in you in terms of maybe some values growing up? What's something that they maybe spoke to you or taught you through their own actions that still kind of resonates to this point today?
Okay, well, we start with my mom. So yeah, my mom is like a really, really strong person. She's Christian. Her morals, her like, just the way she is a human being is just like another level. So for me, she had a really big influence on me, and just like just my morals, the way I think, the way like I feel like I'm exactly like my mother that way. You know what I mean? A lot of those values carried over to me. She is pretty tough though. Like she is pretty hard too, but she is very loving. And I don't know, my mom was, yeah, she was incredible for me growing up. I always loved spending time with her. I can't say enough good things about my mom. My dad was like just full of support. He was always a guy that was like number one supporter. Yeah, always just wanted us to succeed, always wanted us to do the best we possibly could. If we ever got in a pinch or we got in a bad position, he was the first one there to bail us out. Yeah, like my parents, even though like, you know, they might not have the best understanding of one another, or like the best relationship, the two of them, I feel like they did an incredible job at sort of raising us and installing, you know, the good things that needed to be installed into their children. You know, they did an incredible job.
Cool. Okay, last question about kind of the upbringing, then we're going to get into business and bodybuilding. You mentioned like your mom being a Christian. Is faith something still that is something that's valuable and important to you in your life current day, or was that something that was just maybe something instilled in you when you were younger?
Yeah, 100%. I still live my life that way. You know, I'm a Christian. I live my life by faith. I pray every day. It's not something that like, I'm going to choke down other people's throat, but if you want to have the conversation with me and you want to ask my point of view, I'm more than happy to share my point of view, my experiences, and what it has done for my life. Nothing but goods come from it. You know what I mean? I can't say any negative things have come from living my life that way. I think all the values, all the principles are going to bring nothing but just good in your life. You know what I mean? Literally, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's something that I hold very dear to my heart, and I always will. And my wife's a Christian as well. So, yeah, no, absolutely. Like, it's I'm very fortunate that I grew up in that household with my mother, already living that life. So she can install those, beliefs in myself, and it sort of made me the person I am today. And that's why I hold myself to a higher standard, and I feel like I am the person I am. So
Awesome. I just asked because faith is something that's important to me, and we don't talk a lot about it a lot on the podcast, but if there is an
yeah,
opportunity, I think it's something that's important for people
yeah,
to talk about, right? Because a lot of people don't want to
absolutely.
talk about it, and especially in bodybuilding and fitness, it's not necessarily something that we discuss a lot. So I appreciate you touching
Yeah,
on that for a minute, okay, Dorian?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, man. So let's get into business. Let's get into bodybuilding. So your first competition you said was at 17. Why don't you talk about kind of how you started to train like a bodybuilder and talk about that first competition? How did it go? Were you hooked right away?
Okay.
Just unpack that story for us, please.
Yeah, so I started training in my basement. Oh my gosh, grade 7. At that time, it was like, don't lift weights, you're going to stunt your growth. So I started doing chin-ups, dips, push-ups, all that sort of body weight type stuff. I think grade 8, Bowflex just came out, and it was resistance. So I think I bought a Bowflex, started working out on the Bowflex, grade 8 for about a year. And then summer of grade 8 going to grade 9, I started going to the YMCA, got my first membership. I think I still got my key tag. I was 14 years old. Started lifting weights, responded very quickly. Got really strong quick. Worked with my brother. My brother showed me the ropes. I think grade 9, I was benching 2 plates. By grade 11, I was benching 3 plates. I was always working out with guys that were older than me. And you know what it's like when you're 14, you're working out with an 18 or 19-year-old. They're way stronger, right? So it always leveled me up because I was working out with guys that are older, better, stronger, bigger. And then by the time I was in grade 11, I was like, oh man, I might do a bodybuilding show. And there was a local show here in Toronto. It was Muscle Mania at that time. It's a natural federation. And I was 17 years old. I think I started dieting for that show at like 209, 210. And I already dieted down a bit because I was about 220 in grade 11, grade 12. And I competed at like 187. Or no, 182. It was 182. So I did my first bodybuilding show, loved it. It was incredible. And then just sort of, it was at that time I was still playing hockey. And I told my dad, and I was like, hey, listen, I want to do this bodybuilding thing. I can't be training legs and going to play hockey games the next day. So I just started playing high school hockey and then bodybuilding. And every day at school, I was a horrible student. I could not pay attention. I retained nothing in school. I was not interested whatsoever. Did not absorb anything in school, like nothing. I remembered nothing. So, but what I remember myself doing was sitting there with a pen and paper during class, writing out my workouts in detail, exactly what I was going to do when I went to the YMCA after school. So I was always very business savvy, always thinking about business. So I was like, I would even be like just thinking about like ways to make money because I wanted certain things. I like cars, I like bikes. When I was younger, it was dirt bikes. So I'd always be like doing math in my book by myself during class. Like if I cut, 20 lawns a week times $40, I would sort of be doing that sort of stuff in school. So yeah, once I did my first bodybuilding show, from there I was hooked and just kept sort of improving and moving up until I was, oh my gosh, so 25 or 2014, or was it 13? 2013, I think, was the first time I did nationals. I had no expectations. qualified for nationals, went there. There were some heavy hitters like Ron Partlow, which you might know, Jerome Bravo. There was like some guys that are all pros now. And I was like looking at these guys like, holy shit, man, these guys are crazy. Chris Aceto trained me for that show. And then I got called out first call out. And I was like, what the heck is going on? This is insane. There's like 30 guys here. And it was like apparently like really, really close between me, Henry Pierre, and Chris Wong. Both of them actually got pro cards. Henry Pierre won that show. Chris Wong won the Masters, and I got third. So that was the first time that I was like, holy shit, like I can go pro. Everyone was like, dude, you can do this. So I did it the next 2 years and had a really bad experience with the coaches I was working with, and just some really unfortunate things happened. And I started I sold my business, my Pure Nutrition, and I had some business stuff going on, and was thinking about opening a gym, and started coaching really heavily, a lot of like top caliber athletes. You guys know Antoine and Regan at that time, and a whole bunch of other people. And so I sort of took a back seat from competing in 2015. I decided, you know what, I'm not going to compete. I was getting a little bit older, did blood work. Some markers were just not trending very well for me. And the doctor that I was working with at that time didn't have very much knowledge on the situation. So it kind of scared me, freaked me out. So I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to step back. Initially, I was like, I'm just going to take a year off. But 1 year turned into 5 or 6 years because I started coaching. And then it was like every year I was like, oh yeah, I want to compete. Nationals would post their show date. And I had like 3 pros competing within a week, 2 weeks from it. So I couldn't. So it wasn't until last year they released the nationals. And I'd been off for like 5, 6 years, just still in decent shape. I was like 246 pounds. And the nationals was in 14 weeks. And I hadn't trained like that. I still lived the lifestyle, but I wasn't, heavy into the bodybuilding. So I decided, you know what, let's go all in, see what I can do in 14 weeks. Basically transformed from that 246. I ended up on stage like 240. So, but it was close. I got second to Morgan McDonald, but I just needed a little more time. So that's why I decided this year to take another full year to continue to prove upon that and give it one last shot. So here I am now, 8 days out from the Canadian Nationals. So we'll see how it goes.
For sure. So I'm assuming that your goal for Canadian Nationals this year is to get your pro card. Now, in terms of Canadian Nationals, I know because I've had Ron Partlow on here, and I've talked to some of the Canadian athletes in terms of how you guys can get your pro card. Now at Canadian Nationals, is it just the overall winner that gets their pro card, or has it changed over the years?
Yes, it's the overall winner of the Canadian Nationals receives the pro card.
Okay, and that's it, right?
That's it. You got to be the best in the show.
Okay, cool. So that's your goal, right? To win the overall in 8 days?
Yeah, if I win, if I sit back, if I win this, get my pro card, and can look at my physique and look at my improvements in a year with the work I put in, and can justify, hey, I made some really notable improvements here in a year while running all my businesses and doing everything I'm doing. I would consider doing a pro show. I don't know if it'd be next year or the year after that, give myself some time. But if I don't end up getting my pro card, I'm just gonna call it a day and just continue with the coaching. And I still live the lifestyle. I still train, still eat like a bodybuilder, and I love this, right?
Yeah.
So
okay. So I was watching your YouTube channel the other day on some of the recent content that you've been putting out leading up to nationals, and you said in one of your videos, Dorian, that here recently, or as of late, you've kind of switched up your training style a little bit. So would you kind of talk about maybe not from when you were lifting, in your basement or at the YMCA back when you were a teen, but let's just say, from the time that you first competed at nationals in 2013, how were you training? And then kind of how has your training evolved over the years up to that video that you released within the last week or two, where you're I just, again, kind of changed up my training again. Does that kind of make sense? So talk about that evolution, please. Totally. And explain why you've had your training evolve over the years.
Totally. So when I was a little younger, I always loved to press heavy. I was a very strong presser. I loved the feeling of heavy bench presses, dumbbell shoulder presses, incline dumbbell presses. I just loved it. I loved the feeling. Got a great pump. I was strong. But over time, and I didn't think this would ever happen to me. I ended up tearing my supraspinatus, tore my labrum. Post show in 2014, was benching really heavy. I think because everything was so volumized with the rebound, tore my right tricep tendon. Ended up dirt biking with Regan on the four-wheelers, tore my left tricep tendon. So always trying to like still, progressive overload and do this whole heavy pressing stuff, right? And I tinkered around with, a lot of the supersets with Mike Van Wyck, and I liked the feel. I liked it. But there was certain body parts that over the years, I never trained heavy, right? Like in some of my better body parts. So it really got me thinking, like my shoulders always do, besides heavy presses, I always went for pump, went for feel, isolation on all my laterals, rear delts. With arms, same thing. I love supersetting biceps, triceps. I always loved just focusing on getting tons of blood in there and isolating the muscle. So it got me thinking, and I was just like, you know what? Maybe I can't continue to keep pressing like this because I just keep getting injured. And I was trying to like really like make sure my form was better. A lot of things I was doing that maybe were bad habits, breaking them, but ultimately it was just too much load and I couldn't get in the muscle without taxing the joints and the tendons. So I just, started going back to more lighter weight, higher volume, and even incorporating supersets. And I have no pain. My tricep tendons, I can flex my triceps super hard, no pain. Shoulders, no pain. It was so bad before where like I literally couldn't externally rotate. I'd be like stuck here. I couldn't. So everything feels great. I think what happens is with presses, when you end up getting heavy and you go to failure, those first 8 reps, you might be able to keep it in that range that's safe. But then once you get to failure and you push beyond that, which as athletes, we all love to do that, you end up going a little bit deeper, stretching, putting the weight in the shoulder, recruiting other muscles, and ultimately can lead to injury. And that's what was happening. Every time I trained chest the next day, I'd be so sore through my shoulder here to the bicep tendon, where now I have no pain. So I really like this style of training. And I would say like, Mike Van Wyck does a lot of this style. He does a lot more supersets. I don't always do supersets. Sometimes I'll do straight sets and just like ride out high volume. I'll do like maybe like a Jay Cutler style, right? And it's something I spoke to Jay about, and I really liked his training style too, because it's like high volume, 12 reps, and he only rests like 45 seconds. So when someone looks at Jay Cutler and he's doing incline dumbbell presses and he's only doing 110s, they're like, oh, he's not very strong. Yeah, try doing 5 sets of 12 reps with 40 seconds rest. It's all relative, right? Yeah, Jay could have rested 2.5 minutes and done 160s, right? So, yeah.
So basically, it's the way that you've adopted your training style now is just really to more feel the muscle, get the blood in there, and kind of prevent injury. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, pretty much right now where I'm at, that's what I have to do. I think though that there are benefits to doing like a lower volume. I would probably go back and forth. I'd probably set it up so you have like a higher volume phase, or maybe for 4 weeks you're doing high volume, and then maybe for another phase you can back off to a lower volume, maybe just a couple feel sets, building to only 1 or 2 like all out sets. But again, it depends on the person, depends on their injuries, depends on their limitations. You kind of got to do what works for you, right? So yeah, like for me, like I can't do a lot of like back movements. I have a herniated L5S1, so it's like you're not going to see me doing a whole lot of like deadlifts, barbell rows, T-bar rows. I gotta like sort of work with what I got and do what's best for me. And everyone's going to be a little different. But if you're a 3-year-old kid and you're in your prime and you got no injuries, I think it's good to do a combination of both,
For sure.
and find what works for you. Find what works for you, right? Because there was a time where I got a lot of my gains, a lot of growth was when I did like the whole like Dorian and I style of training. I just did a couple fuel sets. I did one all out hard, crazy set. And I grew a ton in those 8 weeks. But then I started thinking, I'm like, was it because I trained high volume for so long and scaling back to low volume for that period? I'm seeing a lot of the rest and the recovery and the growth that's happened over the last 4 months. Right. So I think there's benefits to both.
For sure. Makes sense. Okay. I've got to ask you about this because Animal Pack had like a huge influence on me. So I'm 35. How old are you? You're right around that age, aren't you, Dorian?
35, 1987.
Okay, there we go. Me too. Okay, so when I was like, really getting into bodybuilding, like, I would see, the Animal ads, specifically, obviously Frank McGrath and things like that. But Animal had this culture back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s that I don't think we'll ever see again, in terms of just kind of like that mystique and the hardcore. And it was we'll never see
Very
again.
unique.
And you were a part of that. Can you just talk a little bit about being a part of Animal and what that kind of meant to you and your career, not only as a bodybuilder, but also business wise?
Yeah, I mean, same as you, right? When I was growing up, it was like Animal had this like really cool, vibe, feel. No one was about that. They had the whole community aspect. The forum was awesome. You go on there, you could ask the guys questions. And Frank McGrath was just this like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, he looked crazy, he's freaky, he seems so cool. So yeah, and then even with the Universal, they had a good little push there when they had like Antoine and all that sort of stuff in probably like 2010. So it was like a brand that I really resonated with, and I really wanted to be a part of. So in 2013, I was with them for 2 years before I sort of decided that maybe I want to go and do our own thing with a brand, right, with HT Muscle, because it was something we were thinking about. So it's when I sort of started to part ways, and at that time too, they started losing the sort of vibe at Animal. A lot of what made that company so great was the people behind it, right? Like Jay Diesel, he ended up leaving, went and started G Code. You have a natural guy, Eric Schwartz, right? He was awesome. He ended up leaving as well. So the internal team there wasn't what it was. So I think that's when we started seeing things change. And it's just not, I think from like when I left 2015 forward, it just was never the same, So, but it was awesome to be a part of them. It was cool to experience that community. It was great to go down New Jersey to see their manufacturer facility, to see what they've built since the 80s, like just how much it's evolved and what they have there and all the buildings and everything. It was incredible. It was so cool to see. And for me, it inspired me to, do our own brand and try and create our own community. And that's where we are now.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you first meet Frank, and what was it like kind of meeting him for the first time, obviously kind of looking up to him through the magazines?
Okay. So Frank, I had seen him at the gym. I was just like, I see him walking on the treadmill, and he used to wear that shirt that was a picture of Jack Guy. I don't know if it was him, and it said like cardio sucks. And he'd be walking on the treadmill with his forearms out, and they're just all veiny. And I was just like, what is that? But I ended up meeting a good friend of his. He moved to Burlington, was training at the local LA Fitness that just opened up. We had a nutrition store across the street. And he was like, hey, yeah, I gotta, you should work out with Frank sometime. He's like one of my best friends. And I was like, yeah, you let him know, man. Anytime he wants to come down, if you need supplements, whatever. So he ended up coming down, and we trained, and we hit it off right away. And then we sort of became training partners, which led into like, he's one of my best friends to this day now. So yeah, it was pretty awesome, and it was really cool just to see and be, have all these like friends that are like heavily involved in bodybuilding and have done it longer than I have been there. And it's just crazy. Like when I talk with Frank or even Fuad, like when they came up, how limited information they had available to them versus today. Like these guys had no clue back then. It was like nothing was talked about. No one was doing blood work. There was no like, people are spoiled now with information and online, people giving out stuff for free, and just like everything is so accessible now. So it's pretty cool to see like the evolution of bodybuilding and how much things change.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like Frank, when you talk to him, like when he won his pro card, he had no idea about dieting. Like he was just like, he went on a diet. His buddy was like, yeah, eat some chicken and eat this. Like he got off the plane and he was, is like, he had to go buy food and he was like, what should I eat? Like had a cookie. And then he like went on stage the next morning and won his pro card. You know, so it's just a different time.
For sure, it is.
Crazy.
Okay, I want to ask you a little bit about coaching, Dorian. Then I want to talk about business, and then I'll get you out of here, man. But okay, now in terms of coaching, you yourself are an elite coach, work with Olympians. You've worked with elite coaches. You mentioned Chris Aceto back in 2013. He prepped you for that first Canadian Nationals. I just want to ask you, I guess, who have been a couple coaches that have been the biggest influence on you in terms of the way that you coach and the way that you operate your coaching business?
Oh man, I learned so much from so many different coaches. I worked with so many. So like, for example, we'll circle back because we talked about training and the pump volume, how I love that. So working with Hani, I love the training. I love the FST7. I love the blood volume. I think Hani is one of the absolute best coaches when you have his full attention. He's incredible. I only did off season with him. It was a lot of food, but I definitely really enjoyed his training. Chris Aceto, he was just like, the first year I worked with him, I fucking loved it. He was incredible. He's just one of those guys where like he can't explain something to you on paper. He's not gonna like break down the science for you, but he just knows, like by looking at your body, if you're tired, if you're overtrained. He's just so seasoned in the sport and works with so many guys. He just knows, like he'll look at you some days and just be like, hey, like, yeah, take today off. Or, you know, he loves the muffins, or have 2 muffins today. And whatever he would say, it would work. He just like he has one of the best eyes for bodybuilding, determining if a physique is flat, tired, overtrained, whatever it is. So definitely Chris was awesome. I worked with George Farah. I learned a lot from everyone, man. Honestly, like even Milos. Milos was cool with the supplements and stuff. You learned a lot with that. Neil Hill was great. Man, I worked with like everyone. So who am I missing there? That was oh man, but I even did like even in when I was a bodybuilding one year, I even hired Lane Norton just to learn the macro approach. I just wanted to learn as much information. For me, it was like working with these like coaches and gurus is more like my university. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Other people decide to go to this school, that school. I love nutrition. I love bodybuilding. I love performance, finding ways to get the most out of physiques. So I wanted to learn all these different approaches, you know, and even to this day, I still talk with a lot of coaches like Chris Tuttle, like Phil Viz, these guys. We always bounce ideas off of and share our experiences so we can all be better. And now for this prep, I'm working with Patrick, right? Patur. He's been awesome. I would say out of everyone, Patrick is very similar to the way I coach my athletes. Very simple. Yeah, I love Patrick's been great. It's been incredible.
Out of all those coaches, is there one that sticks out in your mind, Dorian, in terms of kind of like the business side of things? Because, you know, you kind of mentioned Chris Aceto, and I've had a lot of his clients on here, people that have worked with him, and he's kind of just like, you know, a gunslinger, right? And then you have the guys nowadays that are a little bit more dialed in terms of business and social media and all of that. So in terms of the business side of coaching, was there a coach or a couple of coaches that stick out in mind in terms of helping you turn this coaching thing into a profitable business?
Chris is hilarious. Chris, I don't think I ever got an actual like document, email, or no. Sometimes it would be email. He would literally like be like chicken scratch. He'd like, or no, he'd do a text, and it would be like so many spelling mistakes, not spelling mistakes, but like short forms. it would be like 6 chick, CHIC. I guess 6 ounces of chicken breast, and all like short form. You'd have to like, I literally have to sit there and spend 10 minutes to decode it because it was like a riddle. But yeah, so Chris was very much that way. But I would say like, if I had to say like who has been the best businessman or all the coaches, and you could look at and be like, wow, this guy really turned everything into something big, would be Hani, right? Hani was very strategic with the athletes he worked with. He built an incredible business. He did it right. He did an incredible job, and you know, it's very inspirational to see someone like that accomplish so much.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I want to ask you, in terms of coaching, when you have, because like I own a small gym and I have like personal training clients. Like I'm not an online coach or anything like that. I don't prep people. I don't want to, but like, you know, you have a client and they leave you, like you spend time with this person, you train them, and you know, all of that type of stuff. You build some sort of rapport and connection with them, and then for whatever reason they decide that they're not going to continue to train with you, or, you know, in your circumstance, continue to be coached by you. Is that still, I mean, after a while when people leave, you might kind of get, I don't know, used to it, but is it still kind of hard for you when somebody decides like, hey, Dorian, I'm gonna go in a different direction? How do you handle that? And have you been able to handle that better over the years?
Yeah, I've definitely been taught many lessons with like how much time to give people and like boundaries to set, because I tend to give people like everything I got, and sometimes it's too much. You know, I think some people will take advantage of that, and yeah, I'm just more careful with, you know, who I take on now, and just, you know what, lower my expectations. Just because I'm willing to give somebody, you know, what I consider to be what they deserve, doesn't mean that I should have the same expectation for them because they're not me. So I sort of lowered my expectations for people, and you know, still to this day, people will never surprise me. It's like I used to shock me, and now I'm just like, I've been like burned so many different ways that like nothing will surprise me anymore. People ultimately are going to do whatever they feel is best for them. Whatever is, you know, some people want something new, exciting. They want that new shiny thing that's gonna, they think it's gonna give them motivation, or it's gonna light their fire, or it's like, you know what I mean? It's like a girlfriend, right? It's like, oh, you get a new girlfriend. It's exciting for 4 months, right? It's like they're looking for stimulation. So I think personally, I think it's best to find a coach that you vibe with, you work with. The more information, the more data, the more you work together, the better you're gonna get. So, you know, that's but yeah, it's definitely happened to me many times. I mean, I keep things really cool. I'm still cool with all my clients that have been with me in the past. I mean, I've even been in a position myself where I've had to let clients go that are great clients and they've gone on to turn pro, right? Like I had to let even Blake Course go a couple years ago. Patrick ended up turning him pro, but me and Blake are still great friends. You know, Carlos Thomas, you know, I had to let him go because I couldn't commit. I was too busy. Because when I do coach someone, I need to be able to make sure that I can give them 100%. So I need to be honest with myself and honest with my clients. So that's why I don't take on a ton, because, you know, I have multiple businesses, right? But yeah, what was the question again?
No, that you basically answered it in just terms of how you
Yeah.
kind of handle when people decide they're going to go in a different direction with your services.
Yeah. So it's like, it is what it is, right? You can't, you got to try and not take things so personal. Yeah, like, you know, like me and Keon parted ways. We're still boys. We still talk. I still support him. I want to see him kick ass. Me and, you know, Regan last year, he ended up going to Milos. Milos did an incredible job there for those first couple shows. I'm excited to see what they can do with another full off season here going into next year. We still talk. Even Ricky, after these shows, Ricky Moten, he went to George Farah. You know, that's someone that I put a lot of time into. I brought him down here to Canada, and like, you know, so it's like, it just happens, man. It's a part of it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. But I mean, it's gotta, and I know you're not going to throw anybody under the bus, and I don't want you to, but I want to get inside of your brain because, most of us are never going to be able to have a conversation with somebody like you, Dorian, that has all the bodybuilding experiences that you do. So that's why I just want to get inside of your brain for a second. So let's just, when somebody that's a high profile client of yours leaves, like, do you take time to kind of process that? Or is it, you're so busy, it's just like, I'm just literally on to the next thing. You kind of just shove it to the back of your mind and move on. Like, walk us through that just for a second, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I definitely have to take time to process it, look at all the variables, put myself in their shoes. For example, with Regan, when Regan ended up, we did the Olympia, and I don't want to like get too much into specifics, but I knew going into the Olympia, he was not 100%. He started the prep late. I would say it was about an 83% Regan. So I had the conversation with him after it, where I was just basically like, hey, listen, man, I want you to do the Toronto Pro. I think it was I don't know, maybe 6-7 weeks later, maybe 7-8 weeks later. I was like, if I can't get you absolutely inside out peeled and peaked, I want to help you find another coach. Because at the end of the day, I want the best for these guys. This is their careers. You know what I mean? And I told him, I was like, if I can't get what I need to get out of you, you know what I mean? If we're too close of friends, or I'm not able to push you, or if you need someone in the gym to train you, and I'm not that guy because I don't have time to go in the gym and train you, I want to help you find someone else. But Regan wanted to compete, say 2 weeks later. So, or is it a week later or 2 weeks later after the Olympia? I wasn't comfortable with it because I felt like we needed more time. So he ended up talking with Milos, and Milos was like, did the whole like, hey, come to Vegas, I'm going to train you every day, and they did an incredible job. I can't go with my client to the gym every day and train them, where Milos can do that. And Milos is a friend of mine. I think they did an amazing job over those couple shows there. But I will say, taking an athlete from 83% to, 95, 100% is a lot easier than taking someone in the off season when they're out of shape and maybe not as motivated, and you have to take them from, all the way over there to all the way over there. So yeah. So it's like, it was very, it was like, we talked about it, you know what I mean? And so it is what it is. I mean, I would love to continue to work with Regan. You know what I mean? I love the guy. He's a great friend. And, but that's just the part of it. At the end of the day, I want these guys to be the best they could possibly be. And if that's not with me, that's not with me. It's all good. You know what I mean? I don't have an ego. I don't have no ego. When it comes to my clients, I'm truly just trying to get the most I can get out of them. And if I can't get that from them and someone can do a better job, I'm the first one to be like, hey, listen, I think you should try, X, Y, or Z.
Awesome, man. Okay, we're going to wrap it up with just some quick business talk, Dorian. So I know, like you said, you and your brother Noah opened up a nutrition shop back when you were like 17, 18, 19. But why don't we just, for the sake of time, why don't you just kind of pick it up to where you guys started Pure Muscle and Fitness, HD Muscle, kind of talk about just the birth of the gym and HD Muscle, and just kind of catch us up to speed with maybe any future plans that you have in terms of growing both those businesses specifically.
Well, I'm trying to think if I have the first generation HD Muscle supplement here somewhere. I have it somewhere. So yeah, basically the way it sort of started was like, I think this is your question, but for one of my birthdays, I forget when it was like probably 2018. My brother had asked all my friends, like sort of asked me my favorite ingredients, and he made me like 50 pre-workouts. At that time, I had Heavy D apparel. So he branded it with like Heavy D, HD, Heavy D apparel, put my logo on it, made labels, surprised me. And I was like, wow, I was like, this is awesome. And he was like, yeah, we can like manufacture this. I'm working with a manufacturer on this. These are just samples, blah, blah, blah. So that sort of got the wheel spinning. So then we started looking. We were like, you know what? Why don't we find a warehouse? We're going to need a warehouse to obviously do distribution and fulfillment. I go, why don't we look for, and then Regan at that time was looking to close Flexplex in London and relocate it. So we're like, you know what, let's get a little bigger place. We can do half gym at the front, warehouse in the back. So we have like a small private gym. So we were looking initially, Regan was involved in it. He was a part of it. He was on the paperwork. So we ended up finding a place that was a little bigger than we were looking for. It was 11,800 square feet. That's the first Pure Muscle. So we we're pumped about it, ended up moving forward, built the wall for the warehouse. So basically split the unit up. It was like 6,000, 4,000 square feet for the warehouse. And then Regan just had so much, he had so much traveling planned with the sponsor he was with that year, and he couldn't commit. So we were like, it's okay, we'll go forward. We'll just do the gym ourselves. So we went forward with it, did it. We're doing the build out. We were liking building the gym so much. I was ordering equipment and was getting excited. We ended up tearing down the warehouse wall for HD Muscle. We were like, you know what? Let's go full fledged with the gym. Let's do the full 11,800 square feet gym. And let's do HD Muscle the next year. So we did the gym. 2019 opened up. It was awesome. It was a big hit. People loved it. And then 2020, a year later, we got a smaller warehouse across the street and launched HD Muscle. And then last year, the spot, because of COVID, the spot beside our existing units, which was another, oh my gosh, like 24,000 square feet. We always said, imagine one day that opens up, they go into business. Never thought they would though, because it was a booming business. It was a trampoline kids place. Okay. Sure enough, they go to business this COVID. So boom, we grabbed that unit. We ended up putting the warehouse there, expand the gym. HD headquarters is upstairs. So now we have like everything under one roof. It's pretty awesome, 35,000 square feet. And we're actually now looking to grab the unit on the other side and build like a huge wellness center, which is another 8,000 square feet. So we're just building upon it, and it's like a pretty awesome like place, you know. So if you're ever in Toronto, you got to make sure you come to Pure Muscle Fitness.
For sure, man. Yeah, I've had a lot of the guys that train out of there on the podcast, and I've told them I've got to come up and maybe do like a live podcast or something. So HD Muscle then.
Cool.
HD Muscle, did it start with just like a pre-workout and then you guys built out from there? Or what supplements did you kind of first launch with HD Muscle?
Oh my gosh. When we launched with a good amount of SKUs. It was pre-HD Elite and Ultra. It was the Carb HD. It was a Glyco HD. It was an Intra HD. And a Burn HD. So we launched with those. Then we ended up doing the health products, the liver, the kidney, and the sleep. And then we ended up doing some freeform stuff where now we have like glutamine, creatine, raw EAAs, protein, and we have a whole bunch of stuff coming down the pipeline. So it's been pretty exciting. We're starting to do really like custom apparel now too, which is really cool getting into that. So, and I'm going to be actually relaunching the Heavy D apparel. I'm going to be launching it next weekend, the weekend of my show. So I got a really cool design that's going to be coming out.
Where did you get Heavy D, that nickname, when you were with Animal, or is that pre-Animal?
You know who gave me that nickname?
Frank?
It was my old training partner, was Fuad Abiad.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, back in oh my gosh, I would say 2012 or 2011. I think he gave me that nickname. Okay. Yeah.
And what's the meaning behind it?
I think it was just because my name's Dorian and I was big and blown out one off season. You know, I was young at that time. So being 270 at 23, 24 years old, it was big, right? So he just called me Heavy D.
Okay. Pretty simple. Yeah. No, I saw that you were going to be putting out some shirts, I think, on your Instagram story. So that's really cool. Yes. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up here. I just got a one fun question here for you. I've asked a lot of the guys that train out of Pure the same question. So I'm gonna ask you, who is the freakiest bodybuilder that you've seen in person training at Pure Muscle and Fitness?
Man, we've had a lot of people through, but like if I have to say, like The freakiest. Oh man, this is nuts because like everyone in their own right is like freaky. Like when you see Antoine in there training legs and he's wearing his short shorts, it's absolutely insane. You know, time to time, Ian comes and trains, but he stays covered up always. So you can't really see, you know what I mean, what's going on. Quentin, when you see this guy in a tank top, like a stringer, he's like 6 foot plus, 295. He looks insane. But I would say like the freakiest square inch, pound for pound, like on his frame bodybuilder would have to be Hassan Mustafa.
Yeah.
He's training there now, and this guy is just jam-packed with muscle. You know, he's shorter, smaller frame, but just blown out. You know, arms got to be 23 inches. Everything is just blown out and maximized. So he's almost like one of those Belgian bulls with a myostatin deficiency. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I enjoyed your guys' video. You were, I think, training chest with him on one of your YouTube videos. That was pretty cool to see. So
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But you know, even seeing him train, right? You look at a guy who's like one of the most genetically inclined bodybuilders on the planet, and this guy, no ego, man. He gets under the machine. He's right in the muscle. He knows where to start, where to stop. He's just so intuitive, and it's like he's right in the muscle. It was so cool to see that.
Okay, another fun question. In your opinion, who is the greatest open men's Mr. Olympia of all time?
The greatest men's Mr. Olympia all time. Oh, do we mean like one specific year or like like, oh, it's so hard. I would say like
however you want to take it. I don't care. It's your answer.
I think like Ronnie at his all-time best, like it's insane. I think it's unbeatable, you know. But I also liked Phil Heath at his best. He's a smaller bodybuilder, but again, like per square inch, I love that like blown out muscle. I love Phil's detail, the graininess and density of the muscle. But obviously, like, you know, Ronnie Coleman was a much bigger bodybuilder, right? He's taller, bigger frame. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see those two guys side by side at their all-time best look. But I would say those two bodybuilders.
Best Canadian bodybuilder of all time.
Oh, well, right now, I would have to say the best Canadian bodybuilder of all time would have to go to Ian Valliere right now.
Nice.
You know, for open men's bodybuilding, you know, he's killing it, doing a great job. I mean, there's so many great Canadian bodybuilders, but yeah, I'd have to say that Ian is probably, and again, he's still early in his career, so I still think he's going to do a lot in the future. You know, he's only what, like 31 years old, or, you know, so yeah, I think he's going to do great. But I think Antoine still has a lot in the tank. I think if Antoine didn't lose all those years with addiction and stuff, and he would have been able to, you know, how he was when he was 24 and build on that, I think he would have been one of the best Canadian bodybuilders, you know, of all time. Yeah. And I think like this year for the Olympia, I think we're going to see Antoine come to the Olympia, and I think he's going to be 6-7 pounds more muscle than he was at his last show. I do feel he has the genetics and he has the ability to change more than like most of the Olympians in a short period of time. Because even when he came back to that show and we did that, we weren't like set on doing the show. We were basically like, because he had his, like, you know, a little bit of health stuff going on. So we were basically like, hey man, let's just like try and start. We're going to take minimal dosages. Like everything was a quarter, really, really low. Let's gauge your blood work every 3-4 weeks with Dr. Dwayne and see if we can keep you healthy and get to where you need to be. And he was just making great progress on minimal, nothing. So at like 3-4 weeks out, we were like, let's do it, you know? And I think it was one of his all-time best looks. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I love Antoine. His story is awesome. He's got a very unique personality, and I'll be excited to see what you guys can bring to the Olympia. Okay, last question, and then we're gonna wrap it up. What do you feel like bodybuilding has taught you, Dorian, or what do you feel like bodybuilding has given you?
Bodybuilding first and foremost, and I don't, you know, it's tough to say if it was bodybuilding or because when I was a young kid, I had really bad stomach issues. I didn't finally figure out what it was till I was probably like 10 years old. My gut was missing a lot of healthy bacteria, and I battled with the stomach pains. It was horrible for the first 10, 12 years of my life. I ended up finding out certain foods I couldn't eat or I need to supplement probiotics. So that had already like installed discipline in me because I didn't want to be in pain and I had to watch what I ate. But then obviously carrying over to bodybuilding with the amount of discipline needed, I was always that guy that was like, if the other guys do like I always want to do more or work harder than the next person. And I always wanted to out-discipline, outwork, all those sort of things, right? So it definitely taught me a lot of discipline, organization, all those sort of things. And I carried that over to business, to everything else I did, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Dorian, I just want to say thank you, man, for coming on, chopping it up with all of us. Before I do a really quick outro, please let us know what your Instagram is. If people want to find your Heavy D shirts, where can they get that? Any shout outs, anything you want to leave with us? The platform's yours.
Okay. Yeah, my Instagram, you guys can reach me on there. You DM me. I try to get back to all my DMs. It's just Dorian_Hamilton. For the Heavy D apparel when that launches, I'm actually going to launch it on just hdmuscle.com because we're already doing fulfillment on there. You guys want to grab some products while you're on there too, you can, and just throw the shirt in your cart. Yeah, so yeah, guys, feel free to reach out to me. We also, for coaching, I have a lot of other coaches that coach with Team HD. There's like 5 of us, so I oversee everything. So that's just team.h.d on Instagram. So feel free to reach out if you guys are looking for coaching. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. And hopefully we can line something up again in the future.
For sure. All right. Thank you so much, Dorian. I'm going to do a quick outro and then I'll let you go. Okay.
Yep.
All of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much. Really quickly here, make sure you share this specific episode with Dorian on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Dorian, tag Behind the Muscle so that we know you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. Also, if you have not hit that subscribe button on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Behind the Muscle podcast. That's where I release all the episodes first, and then I'll distribute the episodes on iTunes, CastBox, and some of the other major podcast platforms. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.
Later.